My dear 11th class students, this is your second video of the lesson number 7, Education by Swami Vivekananda. This is on page number 42 of your Functional English Literature Reader book. So, in the previous video, we have already learned about how Swami Vivekananda talks about pain and pleasure, and he says that character is the outcome of these pictures, either of either pain or pleasure. The overall outcome of these impression makes a character of a man. So now coming to the second section, then he talks about thoughts. So he says, we are the result of our thoughts. So when we think, we can think about anything we want. We can think whatever we want to think. So our thoughts have the ability, our thoughts have the tendency to go far, to go to distant places. So it's important to take care of what we think. In our thoughts, we can go to abroad, we can go to other state, to other country. We can become birds in our thoughts. For example, we can imagine ourselves flying in the air, or we can think whatever we want, because no one else can control our thoughts. It's just the person himself or herself who has control over his thoughts. So we have this thing totally in our control. So our thoughts has ability, our thoughts have the ability, tendency to go far, to go to distant places, to go to different, to think about different things. So, if we think good about someone, definitely our behavior will be good towards the person automatically. And if we think bad about someone, it will generate hate and we will behave accordingly. So, one has to be very careful while thinking. So, we have to be very careful what we put in our mind. We have to be careful with our thoughts because it is totally in our control. For example, if I think good about the other person, it's in my control. But if I try to think bad about the other person, it's also in my control. And how I behave, my behavior with the other person, depends upon my thinking, depends upon my thoughts. So if I think good about the other person sitting beside me, naturally my behavior will be good towards that person. And if I think bad about the other person sitting there or maybe somewhere else, and that will generate definitely hate, and I will be behaving with him or her accordingly. So one has to be very careful while thinking. Then there are two things, good and the evil. Good and evil play an equal and important role in molding and shaping one's character. So if a person wants to do something good to the other person, uh, he will definitely think good about the other person. And similarly, if he already thinks good about the other person, he will do good with the other person. And similarly, if one wishes to do evil, and his thoughts will be framed accordingly in his mind, and he will do the same. So these are totally dependent on each other. What we think and what we behave, or how we behave, depends upon what we think. Then he says about misery. He says that in some cases misery is a great teacher than happiness. He says unhappiness, distress is a great teacher than happiness. Swami Vivekananda says that if we study the great characters, if we happen to study great personalities of the world, If we go through their background, if we see the different characters, the different great personalities present in the world, if we go through their background, it can be found that in the majority of the cases, it is the misery, it is the distress, it is the bad times, it is the pain, the struggle that taught more than the happiness. So great men of the world have come from the house of poor. So actually, he, by saying all this, he meant this, that great men of the world have come from the house of poor. They have suffered a lot. Their background is it's very clear from their background that they have gone through different struggles, different types of pains, distress, bad times, and these things, these struggles, these pain, these bad times, the outcome was that they have become a great personality. He says that it was poverty, the state of being poor, that taught more than wealth. It's not because of the money, because of the wealth they become rich, they become great personalities. Rather, it is the state of being poor, the state of in a deficiency, that made them a great personality. So then he says, it was blows, it was a storm that brought out their inner fire more than praise. He says he has used an idiom here. He says that nobody can become great lying on a bed of roses. Lying on a bed of roses. It means that nobody can become great in a pleasant or easy situation, or in a comfortable situation, and never crying and having all the luxuries, all the essentials of life. Can all these essentials, all these luxuries of a life can make no one great. One has to go through pain, one has to go through different types of struggle, distress, bad times, then only his life becomes more peaceful, beautiful, and he achieves a lot, and it makes him a great personality. It's not that one has to lie on a bed of roses and then he achieves everything in his life. One has to face a lot. So then he says that when there is love, when there is affection, this love and affection generates in one's heart. When there is distress, when there are sorrows, so he says love, fondness, affection generates in one's heart when there is distress all around, and we feel like no light can be seen anymore. When hope and courage are almost gone, the light, when there is no hope, there is no courage, the light gleams, shines brightly. So, when one faces the storm of gloom, when one faces the storm of darkness, and there is complete despair, there is complete loss, there is complete absence of hope, there is a chance that the light will shine brightly. There is a chance of hope. So, in this section, he talks about how thoughts play an important role in shaping a man's character, how good thoughts and bad thoughts play a vast role in one's life, how our behavior is basically outcome of our thoughts. And then he talks about how great personalities, they have their background, and we know that that they have become what they are because of their struggle, because of sometimes because of the misery. It's not just because they are very rich, very wealthy, and thus they became very great personalities, but they have gone through, most of them have gone through different types of struggles and pain, and that's the outcome of their struggle that they have become great personalities in the world. Then he talks about hope, that sometimes we feel like there is no hope, but at the later stage we feel we have the kind of feeling that the light will shine brightly again. Let's continue this lesson in the other videos. Thank you.